What's going on, everybody? We are back again today with another episode of B Movies, Be Bad or Be Good. Now, the movie I wanted to review for you today was a movie called Minotaur. And I've seen this movie once before, and I wanted to do it in this review section. I found this about a week ago maybe 2 weeks ago, at a garage sale, and I popped it in the player today and it wouldn't play. I guess the disc is a little fucked up, so I decided to do another movie because that one wouldn't work, which sucks because I was really looking forward to that review. But I decided to go through my collection and pick out another movie I have not seen yet. I have a bunch of horror movies that I have not seen yet in my collection that I've picked up at garage sales or wherever, estate sales, auctions, value bins, just wherever. So the movie that I am doing for you today is a movie called Faust, Love of the Damned. And this is a movie I've seen a bunch of times in stores. I've passed it over quite a few times. I always thought the cover art was very good, but I just wasn't sure if I'd like it, so I just kind of passed it over. Well, I found it at an estate sale for $1, so I bought it. And I haven't watched it yet. I watched it this morning. We were supposed to go to church and we didn't make it to church, so I ended up watching this movie instead. Yeah, I feel like I need a shower now. Especially since I watched this on a Sunday morning. You know, maybe I shouldn't have, but oh well. Yeah, I definitely feel like I need a shower after this movie. Let's find out if Faust, Love of the Damned is Be Good or Be Bad. So this film was actually directed by Brian Yuzna, who actually has quite a pedigree under his belt. He, as a writer, wrote a lot of films that we know, like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He also produced Reanimator, and he directed Bride of Reanimator, and a few other horror movies. He has a pretty decent pedigree as a writer, producer, and even as a director. It stars Jeffrey Combs as Lieutenant Margolis. Now, he is not the main character in the film, but he is one of the only two probably well-known actors in the film. This was also in Reanimator, and he has quite a bit of a horror pedigree. The other person that stars in this movie who plays our demon Satan character, M. Mephistopheles, Andrew Divoff, who, if you remember, he's played a bad guy in a lot of movies. And he also played the Djinn in Wes Craven's Wishmaster, and he played the Djinn in Part 2 as well. So he also has a bit of horror pedigree, and he's played in some other horror films as well. I actually have a little audience member here this morning. She's right off screen, but she's watching me, and she just accidentally hit a button, and so she thinks I got onto her, but I'm just playing with her. So right now she has her head buried in the blankets. The synopsis of this movie is a young artist named John sells his soul to the devil, or to a demon, to get revenge on the people that killed his girlfriend. And he doesn't quite realize what he's signing up for. He's a man of no faith. He believes in nothing. And he ends up becoming to believe in things and realizing that that too can be taken from him, as the devil Mephistopheles keeps pulling his strings. This film, as I said, it left me wanting a shower when I was done. It is disturbing in some ways. It is very cheesy in some ways as well, as far as like what they feel, what Hollywood views as, you know, satanic rituals and satanic cults, and it's all the same stuff that you see in a lot of B movies. You got human sacrifice and you have sex and like an orgy going on all at the same time. And that's kind of the feel you get from this movie. Is a lot of this movie, while it does have some good points, a lot of it is a lot of TNA and bad dialogue. So let's get into our pros and cons section, guys. Hang on one second. Going out? Go ahead. Let's start off our pros and cons section with our pros. One of the big pros in this film is the practical special effects. They did a very good job, especially on a lot of the kills. And it was actually a very well done film by the practical special effects team. They were gruesome, they were gory, and they had all the right touches to make it look really good and make it look a little more realistic. The second pro I've got is the soundtrack. Now, this movie came out in 2000, and it has a very late 90s, early 2000s metal soundtrack. It was all bands on Roadrunner Records, I believe. You got bands like Sepultura, Machine Head, Coal Chamber, Fear Factory, you know, and if you are into that kind of music, and I'm into that kind of heavy metal, it does have that very good metal soundtrack that a lot of these early 2000 horror movies had. I think a lot of them based their soundtracks off of, like, you know, what Ronnie Yu did with Bride of Chucky, and then again with Freddy vs. Jason, but I really think they took a cue from that these heavy metal soundtracks could really help out a film. Also, Dracula 2000 had one. A lot of people don't like Dracula 2000. I actually enjoy that film. I thought it was a good modern take on Dracula, but I'm getting a far afield. Maybe I'll do that one later. The final pro I have for this film is that it has a decent story. The story is pretty good. Now, I mean, it's a story as old as time, because who hasn't heard of the story of Faust? If you've been around long enough, you've heard of the story of Faust. They even display the story of Faust in Tombstone. Yes, the movie, Tombstone. And in that, they're doing a play of it. But everybody knows this story. It's an age-old story of you want something, you sell your soul to get it. Hell, even The Simpsons has done this. Everybody's done this storyline. But yes, Faust, it's a very classic story, but they did it really well in this movie. I really like the writing of the story. Now, that is going to lead me into my con section and into my first con, and that is some of the dialogue. Not so much M's dialogue. M was pretty good, and I wonder if Andrew Divoff didn't have a hand in writing some of his own dialogue, because it sounded a lot like his stuff, like stuff he's done in The Wishmaster or in other films. It sounded good, and he delivers it so well. That is a big pro for me, is Andrew Divoff. I like him a lot. I think he makes a great bad guy and a great villain. And I think he makes a great horror villain in this movie and in Wishmaster. I really like him in this movie. But as I said, it does lead into my first con, which is multitude of bad dialogue. The main character, John Jaspers, especially when he's in his demon form, the dialogue is just really cheesy and really dumb. And I don't know what they were going for there. I think they were trying to give him like a Freddy one-liner kind of deal, because while he delivers most of the kills in the film, he's also the hero of the film. And it makes for a very weird crossing. That also brings me into my next con. The look and the makeup effects and the suit, I guess you could call it, of the demon, John Jaspers, when he's in his demon form. He looks like he's wearing a suit from a bad superhero movie. See what I mean? It looks really dumb. And I just don't know why they went that way. They had so much great effects on the kills and stuff. Why didn't they spend a little bit of that money and a little bit of time and give him a really decent look? Like I said, the cover art of this movie looked great, and I've been interested in it a long time. But when I finally sat down and watched the movie, I was like, wow, that's really stupid looking. I mean, he looks like he's in one of those Halloween Superman suits with the big fake muscles and all that stuff, you know? It just really didn't look good. I really didn't like that part of it. As I said, I really enjoyed Devov I can never say his name right. I really enjoyed Andrew Devov in this film. I like him in a lot of stuff. I think he's a great actor and a great villain. But outside of him and Jeffrey Combs, a lot of the acting is bad, including the acting from our main character. I just thought it was very cheesy and just very amateurish almost. And I don't know, maybe they were just looking at this like, oh, it's a paycheck. They knew this movie wasn't going to be huge. So they just did it, but I just didn't like a lot of the acting in this film. And there was a big con for me in this movie was there was a couple scenes that just weren't needed, and they were just gross out scenes. And I know that that appeals to some people in horror movie, but it doesn't appeal to me. There's a scene where M is threatening his assistant that I think could have been done a lot better. They use basically CGI and gross out to get this effect, and it just didn't look good. And like I said, it just looked really filthy, and it's one of the things that made me want it feeling really unclean when I watched it. At first it was kind of funny. They use CGI and they make her breasts just become enormous, and just like, it's kind of comical. They pop out really big. Then they kept going and going with things, and it just looked really gross. And they started spurting some fluids that I don't want to get into, and that looked really gross. And I just didn't see the point of it. In that story, they could have done it so much differently. They could have done it better and different by him threatening her, him doing all kinds of things he could have done with his powers than what they did. And it just really turned me out of the film. It was very gross. That was the point of the film where I really started just kind of like, There's another scene where our main character, M, gets poisoned, and the effects of the poison are very gross on him. Sometimes gross works, but not all the time. And especially when there was a better way of doing it. They could have done something a lot different and made it look really cool without it being gross. And maybe it's because of budget, I don't know, they went with the gross out tactic instead. My very last con in this film is the CGI effects they used, especially towards the end of the film. At the end of the film, they're summoning this big giant demon hell beast to come forward to wreak the apocalypse on the world, and it just looked really bad. The beast itself was all CGI. It looked really cheesy, really dumb. They tried to make it look good, I think, and it just didn't work. I don't know if they were starting to run out of money at this point or what, but like the effects, like the powers of the beast, he had a pentagram on his head, and out of the pentagram shot this like laser beam, and it just looked really stupid. It looked like it was special effects from the 1960s. Like I said, I don't know what was going on there, but it just looked really, really terrible. I don't know if they were running out of cash or if they were approaching a time limit or what, and they just said, oh, we'll get this in post and CGI. But it just looked really stupid. And I didn't like that part of it at all. And it, like I said, there was a lot of things where this film had a lot of good potential, and it could have been so much better. But a lot of those things really pulled me out. The fake-looking demon suit pulled me out. The gross-out scenes pulled me out. And the terrible CGI at the pivotal moments in the film at the end pulled me way out. So, overall, guys, I gotta give this movie a B bad. Sorry, Faust. You know, I figured with the pedigree you had with your creative team, it would be a lot better. But you weren't. So, this one is definitely going in the garbage. See you later, guys.